Come on.
Well, good morning and welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for Friday, January 7th, 2020. And here are our top stories. Inheriting money in 2020 is going to look a lot different. And resolutions you can apply now to make your retirement better. Well, let's welcome in Ali Melito. She is the retirement reporter for Market Watch. Hi, Ali. Happy New Year. Good to see you.
Hi, Happy New Year. Nice to see you too.
Well, thank you for joining us this morning. So let's start off. We had at the end of the year the inclusion of the Secure Act in the Appropriations Bill, which is good news. But as you have recently written, there are some major changes to inheritance. What can you tell us there?
Yeah, so the rule made a few changes. It allowed more open access to annuities. It let small businesses expand their retirement offerings to employees. But one thing that was particularly controversial among advisors and soon-to-be beneficiaries is the way that people can inherit IRAs and 401ks. So prior to the Secure Act passing, a non-spousal beneficiary, so somebody who is not a husband or wife, they had their life expectancy, that it was an option to take out required minimum distributions over their lifetime. Mm-hmm. That was just one option. Another one had to do with 5 years. But under this Secure Act, you actually only have 10 years. So that means that you have 10 years from the day that you inherit the account to withdraw all the assets. So instead of the prior rules where you would take a required minimum distribution every year, you don't have that once a year anymore, that rule, but you do have to withdraw all of the assets by the end of the 10th year. And the reason why it was controversial is because there are tax consequences to that. So this particular provision of the bill alone generates most of the tax revenue that the government will likely benefit from, as opposed to like adding annuities and things like that.
Sure.
But it means that if you are a beneficiary who's, say, 40 years old and you have 10 years to withdraw the assets, you might still be in the peak earning years in those 40s and in the beginning of your 50s, which means that you will be hit with a larger tax bill than if you were able to take small portions of that inheritance over your lifetime.
So the IRA, because you have to take it out sooner, gets added in with your adjusted gross income, is part of the taxation. And I mean, that obviously would create opportunities or changes to financial planning regimes that many people are following.
Yeah. And also another particularly dangerous aspect of this provision, one advisor told me, it has to do with trusts. So say you have, you access this inheritance through a trust after the passing of the Secure Act, which was official, it was fully enacted and everything by January 1st. If you are in that particular type of trust called like a pass-through trust or a conduit trust, you might be locked out of your money for 10 years. So those trusts, like the conduit trust and the pass-through trust, they're very popular for people who want to have a little more control even in death. So they might say, like, I'm going to give my 25-year-old grandson this money through a trust, but he's kind of, he spends a lot of money and he might not be responsible with it. So we're going to have him take out that money slowly. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. That's just what some people want to do. And if your grandson or grandchildren or anybody else doesn't exactly need that money, that's an option. But if you still have that language in your trust where they take the required minimum distributions every year, or they take the language would just say required minimum distribution, there technically aren't required minimum distributions under the Secure Act for an inherited IRA or 401k. The only actual technical RMD is after the 10th year, which is when you have to take out all of your money. So then say you have, I don't know, $100,000. That $100,000 is going to be taxed because it came out all at one time in a lump sum. Right. So if you are a benefactor and you do have that type of trust, you have to run, not walk, to an attorney because your trust firm, whoever you want to go to make sure that that language is changed, because you could be setting up your kids or grandkids or loved one for a really bad tax surprise.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, it is important to always consult a tax professional, especially when tax laws change. But Allie, it's not uncommon when a bill that is in the magnitude of the Secure Act or the Appropriations Bill, there's always a give and a take and a closure of certain quote-unquote loopholes. And this one has always been kind of categorized as one for the wealthy. But the reality is these inherited IRAs are not necessarily just for wealthy people. A lot of people from the middle class, all different classes, I hate using that terminology, but people from all across the spectrum, let's just use it that, put it that way, use these. And so this has a more of an impact that maybe most people would recognize.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't have to have hundreds of thousands of dollars in an IRA to give it to a loved one when you pass on. So this is going to affect pretty much anybody who has a 401k or IRA that they leave behind. But it's important to plan ahead. So if you do expect to be getting an inheritance through the form of an IRA or a 401k and you are not a husband or wife of that account holder, then you should really implement some sort of financial plan, because you don't necessarily want to take all the money at once if you are a higher earner. But you also need to figure out what the best strategy would be for yourself and your tax consequences.
Yeah, well, certainly walk or run, do not walk. Now is the time to do that, along with looking at your budget. Allie, I'm going to go to commercial break, but when we come back, Allie's going to be here, and we'll talk about a list that she put together of the top 20 resolutions, New Year's resolutions, I guess, financial resolutions for 2020. So stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network. Welcome back. We're talking to Alessandra Melito, a retirement reporter with Market Watch. Allie, thanks so much for sticking around with us this morning.
Yeah, of course. I love this.
So we're going to go, and I know you're so passionate about retirement and savings, and hear that in your voice. So we're gonna shift gears. We talked about inheriting money, but let's talk about New Year. Some people work out, some people take up a new hobby, but you've got 20 resolutions that you came up with for people who are around finance and retirement. What can you tell us?
Yeah, so I wanted to do a list of resolutions for retirement savers, and this could be if you're in your 20s, it could be in your 30s, it could be if you're 5 years out from retirement, or if you're in retirement. So if you are younger and not quite near retirement yet, maybe you have a few decades to go, obviously the focus should be on saving. And there are a few ways to do that. So you can make a resolution such as exploring a new account to invest in. So maybe you have a 401k at your job. Now you could look into an IRA or a brokerage account or something like that if you're interested in it. And if you don't have a 401k, maybe take that into consideration and like maybe explore how to set that up or whatever you could possibly do. A very popular resolution is to add to your contribution rate. So say you are doing 3% or 5%, you're bumping it up to 4% or 6%. This is also, sometimes people can't do that at the beginning of the year, so then you could tie it to like a raise or something like that. Mm-hmm. If you don't have your contributions automatic, that is a huge resolution to have. You should make your contributions automatic because it'll just make you actually save more for your future. That's why companies are starting to make automatic enrollment more accessible, because people are more likely to stay into an account rather than opt in afterwards. And they're less likely to opt out if they're already automatically enrolled. So that's another popular resolution. Also plan for your health expenses. So obviously you cannot necessarily expect when you're going to get a cold or anything worse, God forbid, but you can plan for the saving aspect of that. And one way to do that is by opening an HSA. HSA is short for a health savings account. It's usually tied to a high deductible health plan, which isn't easily accessible for a lot of people, or it might be unaffordable for people because, as the name implies, you have a higher deductible. Right. But it is a way to save for current health expenses, but also future health expenses. And it's got triple tax benefits because you contribute the money tax-free, it grows tax-free, and you can withdraw it tax-free if you use it for eligible expenses. Let's see, sorry.
Allie, let me ask you a question here, Allie. And I think you alluded to this with some of the automatic capabilities that retirement plans now have. But, you know, I know plenty of people who resolve that they are going to work out or they are going to take up a hobby, and then a month in, they join the gym, they decide not to go. I mean, one of the hardest things for many people to do is just to change behavior. Any thoughts around doing that? I mean, obviously saving for retirement, you have a shared responsibility in doing that, and you should take ownership of it. But any thoughts about trying to maintain some of these very important resolutions you're covering?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best way to see results is to make small tweaks and steps to your already regular routine. So I'm actually doing this myself with other resolutions. So like, you know, money is important to me, but also working out more and eating healthier. And the way that I'm able to do that is by making small tweaks and making it easy for myself. Because if I really have to work that hard to change my routine or my habits, I'm not going to stick to it. And most people don't stick to their resolutions by like mid-February as it is. I think it's like 80% of Americans drop their resolutions by mid-February. So when it comes to like retirement saving, that does mean automatic contributions, you know, having that automatically enrolling in that, or not automatically, but manually enrolling in that. And then you don't have to do anything with that. Your company takes it from there. So once you say, I give you the go ahead to take a certain percentage of my paycheck, they're just going to do that, and you're going to see a little less money out of your paycheck, but it's worth it. A lot of people say that they can't save for retirement, especially when they are millennials or in and around that age group, to which I say you can save 1% or 2%. The goal, many advisors say, is to save between 10 to 15%. That is not feasible for a lot of people. So the next best thing is, if you really feel like you can't save anything, try to get to the company match, if you have a company match, because that's essentially free money. Yeah, and if you can't do that, do less. So you don't have to feel shamed, and nobody should make you feel shamed if you want to save for retirement, but you don't have the funds to do that. Start small. Start at 1% or 2%. And then every year, or when you get a raise or a new job or something like that, bump it up. Because if you bump it up before you see that extra money, you're not going to feel it as hard. And it's not as much of a decrease in your paycheck as you would think, because taxes, the way that the taxes are, they charge you and all that stuff. So it's not like hundreds of dollars are going to disappear from your paycheck. It really depends on what your percentage, your contribution rate is and all that.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Well, I was just going to comment on what you said. I think that's really, really important that you break it up into little more manageable pieces. And that's the case with anything. I think, if you view it as I'm going to do this over the course of 365 days or 52 weeks or however you choose to break it out, and you do little things, that's really important, from a thoughtful point of view, being able to think about it and not just be overwhelmed. Because when you say, Allie, I need to defer 10 to 15%, a lot of people are probably like, well, I don't have 10, 15%. Well, if you do the 1% as you're suggesting, you can, or 2% or 3%, or get the company match, you can, over time, raise it as you're suggesting, or look at areas of your budget over time that you can adjust. So maybe you don't need, you didn't need to go to the movies, or maybe you can eat out once less a week. I mean, what other the cliches are.
Absolutely. And there are ways to find money even in your own budget. So a lot of people suggest combing through your credit card statements because that's where you'll see everything. And a lot of people don't want to do that because they will see everything and they don't want to. But if you did, you could see maybe you're being charged for a subscription that you don't actually really use. Or maybe you have Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, and literally every other streaming subscription. And you don't actually use one of those. So get rid of that one. Also, something that I have been personally doing is I'm doing a little no spend challenge where I'm trying not to spend anything this entire week on breakfast, lunch, and dinner, just to see if I can do it. Every morning I get coffee and I get like a croissant or something like that. And sometimes I spend after lunch, sometimes I bring my lunch in. And dinner, I don't do that much takeout, but with the holidays, I had a lot of takeout. So my goal has been to not spend. So I'm making overnight oats, which saves me $6 in the morning, every morning. And I'm making a sandwich, which, the cold cuts equaled like $15 with the bread and all that stuff. And that's lasting me 5 days. And and for dinner, I planned my meals this weekend so that I already have a plan of what I'm going to be cooking Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So I have so far not spent any money this week rather, on the things that I normally spend on, and that makes a dent after a while.
Yeah, and I think you make a really good point. I got 30 seconds. Just want you to comment again on this. No one should feel ashamed about what they did in the past. The past is the past. You can't go back and change it. And by the way, Allie, none of us are perfect, right? So put that aside, and all you can do is plow forward.
Yeah, absolutely. You should not feel ashamed. And that's a problem with a lot of personal finance conversations where, you're shamed into not drinking coffee or eating avocado toast or something like that. And then it becomes this big deal and it's all over the place. But you should just make little tweaks that should be your resolution. Find 1 or 2 little things that you could do to change in the next couple of weeks that might provide you serious benefits over the year.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. Allie, always a pleasure talking with you. Happy New Year. Great information. And we'll look forward to having you back on the program very soon.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. But don't forget, we're back again tomorrow, Saturday, for our look back episode, our retrospective known as BRN Weekly. And also, don't forget, you can always check out the news in retirement, markets, technology, personal finance, and so much more in today's edition of The Morning Pulse. So until tomorrow, I'm Jeff Snyder. Keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.